Welcome to the official Iron Empire lore video. Now before we get started, I need to talk about a few things. First of all, thank you guys so much for getting this channel to 500 subscribers. The plan originally was to get here by the end of the year, December, Christmas, thereabout, but thanks to your guys' effort, we've got here even quicker. That's due in part to my AI Pixar movie series that I've been doing recently. I really had a lot of fun making those. And expect more of them in the future. I really can't believe it. 500 subscribers. Sorry if I'm a little all over the place with this. I really feel like I'm onto something big with this channel. I really do. I couldn't get here without you guys. And let's get to 1,000 sometime next year. Let's say July. July next year. 1,000. As a special, we're going to do a deep dive into the lore and history of the Iron Empire. It's essentially a government that kind of takes over the world after the United States goes wah or whatever, which could be really soon. It restores order and prosperity. I've been your emperor. Thank you for 500 subscribers. Here's to next year. I love you. Mwah. Welcome to the year 2099, New Year's Eve. The world is at relative peace, and the citizens of thousands of nations eagerly await the new century, and whatever it may hold. Laughter and merriment are in the air, children scream with great joy after being finally allowed to stay up past 12 o'clock. People drink, dance, and socialize without a care in the world. Crowds cheer and count down as the ball drops and the clock strikes midnight. How happy they are, and how miserable and afraid their children will be. It's now 2100, and the United Nations announced to the masses a new world order, a global reset. The before-mentioned thousands of nations will soon simultaneously be merged into one beautiful autocracy to ensure peace and equity for generations to come. By the year 2105, many countries and world powers have done away with their constitutions, histories, and national pride, and merged into one mighty supernation led by the most wealthy and influential people alive, known only as the Global Economic Council, or GEC. This massive, diverse nation, known as Zenith, was a near universal success, as it demolished the old war-obsessed nations of the past and their corrupt institutions, and ideologically sought to eliminate the old religious dogma of the past, and replace it with a universal, humanist religion that glorified Zenith exclusively, meaning any faith beyond that of the GEC was dangerous thought and had to be done away with. Gradually, people around the world started feeling these major changes as they became increasingly impactful. In 2107, all cows and other such livestock were humanely drove to extinction in favor of a more environmentally friendly alternative, such as grasshoppers and crickets. 2108 saw the complete discontinuation of motorized vehicles, and 2109 saw the reinvention of housing itself, as millions of Zenith citizens and families were evicted from their former houses and relocated into tall buildings with barred windows, named safe spaces, where thousands of folk lived as one collective family and slept in pods. In 2110, physical money was replaced with a completely digital currency, and only businesses affiliated with Zenith, and by extension the GEC, could buy, sell, or trade. Anyone not invested in Zenith's system, known to the public as Sixcoin, would go out of business. However, this would not stop a select few nations with nationalist leaders from rebelling against what they preconceived as an authoritarian system. Some countries stayed independent and stood firm in their cultures, religions, economies, and national identities. This defiance of Zenith was an ultimate threat to the Global Economic Council, and by all means considered an act of diplomatic warfare. This would not stand. Such affirmations were in direct defiance of the New World Order, and the old institution of nationalism had to be abolished at all costs to secure Zenith dominance. Being already put in charge of the planet's furthest reaching search engines, social media platforms, and tech oligarchies, the GEC in 2111 had all figures, businesses, and personalities who shared sentiment with the nationalists censored or in extreme cases removed from public life completely and imprisoned. This did not stomp out the flames of rebellion, however, as support for the few countries increased among neutral territories and profoundly with the citizens within Zenith itself. In 2112, the GEC then cut off all trade and fiscal support for these nations, and attempted to starve them out until they surrendered and joined Zenith. This was a remarkable strategy, but they had not taken into account radical partisan groups, such as Smite. The undermining of tradition, religion, the nuclear family, and national identity didn't just ruffle a few feathers, it caused complete outrage. And with this outrage, the formation of a rebellion committed to the destruction of Zenith and the restoration of the old nations, primarily the United States of America, now being overtaken by Zenith. Founded as a reactionary force by what you and I would call conspiracy theorists, saw and analyzed the shifts in power and the state of geopolitics, and predicted the globalist apocalypse years before Zenith's founding. This was a sinister, mighty, and indomitable Templar establishment group, otherwise known as Smite. Ideologically, they were a group of fanatics obsessed with the Christian knights of old, who fought for the Holy Land in the Crusades. However, over the centuries had become more and more cult-like, violent and radical in their exploits. The organization was founded within Florida in 2104, initially disguised as a church charity in Orlando, with about 6,000 original members, with the public and Zenith unaware of their arguably sinister plan to change things back to the way they used to be. Had already been spreading their radical ideas and recruiting members by the hundreds to gather things necessary to start a revolution. Little did even the most observant Zenith loyalists know, Smite was always in the shadows, always waiting, growing in power and influence, with an almost cult-like reverence for the ways of classic Western philosophy, a philosophy being rapidly forgotten. In 2105, the time came to act, as early Zenith had compromised the former United States, and was soon going to publicly burn the US Constitution. In a daring operation, Smite operatives managed to steal the original document and replace it with a forgery. The success of this operation boosted the morale of Smite members across the land, but their moment to completely emerge from the shadows had not come yet. This time would emerge in 2112, when Zenith attempted to squeeze all resources out of the crumbling independent nations and force them to merge into the territories of itself. The weakening of the resistant countries would secure globalist supremacy over the world, and the GEC was very close to achieving this. However, Smite, with now about 700,000 radicalized members and a vendetta against the globalists, took action and began stealing food, weapons, communications, fighter jets, one hydrogen bomb, and the minds of millions as they hijacked globalist media broadcasts to replace Zenith propaganda with their own. This was all in close collaboration with the independent nations, now known to the masses as the nationalist powers. Smite had now officially made a name for itself, and by 2115 had countless members, activists, and militants around the world, possibly in the millions. If you are familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I'm sure many of you are, Smite has essentially become the Hydra of its world, and now labeled by the GEC as a paramilitary terrorist organization bent on world conquest. With the world divided in two, with the traditionalist zealots on one hand and the pioneers of tomorrow on the other, conflict was inevitable. And whether you take the stance with the GEC and its Zenith, or the independent nations and their Smite, well, this would be soon irrelevant, as all these major factions would be pitted together in a global war, and all of which would cease to exist. The final World War was on the horizon.